They hung her from the old sycamore at the edge of town, just as the sun slipped behind the Blackhorn Ridge and turned the sky the color of bruised peaches. No trial, no jury, just a rope, a mob, and a sheriff who kept his hand on the butt of his revolver and pretended that made it lawful. Sheriff Cole Ransom stood a few yards from the tree, boots sunk in powdery dust, watching the woman on the back of the rusted pickup. The noose sat around her neck like a question nobody wanted to answer. She wore torn jeans, a faded gray t-shirt, and a black windbreaker streaked with dried mud. Her wrists were tied behind her, but her spine was straight, her chin lifted. She didn't look like a killer. She looked like someone who'd just run a marathon through hell and refused to kneel at the finish line. "Last chance to say something," Cole said. His voice sounded too loud in the hush of the gathered crowd. The townsfolk of Harrow Creek circled the truck in a wide ring. Men with old shotguns and fresh rage. Women with arms folded tight, faces pale and pinched. Teenagers hovering at the back, eyes wide and bright, trying to act braver than they felt. Someone had chalked a word across the truck's dented tailgate: spy. The woman turned her head until her sharp, gray eyes found Cole's. Under the halo of the bare work lamp hung from the tree, those eyes looked almost silver. "You the sheriff?" she asked. "Yeah." "Then you already heard everything I needed to say." He had. She'd said it 3 times in the last hour, after they dragged her into the station, bleeding from a cut on her forehead and mud clinging to her boots. Calm, steady, no matter what they called her. "I'm not here to hurt your town. I'm here because something worse is coming. You got the wrong enemy." "Ma'am," Cole said, forcing his jaw to unclench, "these folks, they're scared." She interrupted, voice low but clear. "Scared people do stupid things. That's not their fault. It's yours." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Beside the truck, Deputy Holt shifted his weight and spat in the dirt. Holt's eyes were hard slivers under the brim of his hat. He'd been the loudest voice in the station, shouting about how they'd finally caught the one who'd been watching them, the one leaving strange tracks on the ridge, the ghost on the thermal cameras. "She's stalling," Sheriff Holt called. "We all saw the satellite gear in her pack. We all saw that rifle. She ain't here on vacation." "Rifles ain't illegal in this town," Cole replied. "You got one in your truck right now. Mine ain't pointed at our houses from up in those hills." Holt's lip curled. "You forget the kids that disappeared? The truck's gone missing? That cabin we found burned to ash? Somebody been marking us, selling us." The woman's gaze flicked to Holt, then back to Cole. "I didn't burn that cabin," she said. "I didn't take your kids. And that gear you saw." She twisted her shoulders, testing the rope around her wrists, almost lazily. "That was to help you, not hurt you." "Enough," a thick-set man near the front shouted. Tucker Doyle, owner of the feed store and half the land on the north side of the valley. His face glowed red in the lamp's harsh light. "You think we don't know when someone's scouting our town, Sheriff? You think we're idiots?" There were shouts of agreement. A few voices, shaky, tried to object, but they were swallowed whole. Cole's stomach curled around itself. He'd spent all day trying to coax this crowd back from the edge, but the edge had given way under them hours ago. The missing ranch hands, the charred cabin in the foothills, the air still stinking of fuel. The rumors of cartel scouts in the mountains running drugs between states, using remote towns like Harrow Creek as stepping stones. Fear spread through a place like this faster than any fire. He looked back up at the woman, at the faint white scar that cut across the bridge of her nose, at the thin leather bracelet on her right wrist, darkened by sweat. "I'm sorry," he said, and meant it. For the first time, something changed in her expression. Not fear, not anger, just a flicker of disappointment, like she'd expected a little more from him. "Don't be sorry," she said. "Be ready." "For what?" She smiled, small, sad, and infuriatingly calm. "For what's coming when they realize you killed the wrong person." Lightning rumbled somewhere beyond Blackhorn Ridge, a low growl rolling over the pines. The evening wind picked up, rattling the sycamore's leaves. The rope creaked against the thick branch overhead. Holt stepped up to the truck bed, hand on the lever that would drop the tailgate and knock her feet from under her. "Do it," Tucker barked. The crowd leaned forward as one. Cole wanted to shout wait, to demand one more night, one more hour to sort through this. He opened his mouth and found nothing there but dust. The woman saw it, saw the hesitation. For just an instant, her gaze gentled. "What's your name, Sheriff?" she asked. "Cole Ransom. You're going to remember tonight for the rest of your life. Cole Ransom. When you do, remember I tried to warn you." Holt yanked the lever. The tailgate slammed down. The crowd roared, then hushed as the rope snapped tight. Cole flinched and looked away, jaw grinding, fingers flexing uselessly near his holster. The sycamore shuddered. The branch above them groaned. And then, with a noise like a rifle shot, the branch cracked. Gasps cut through the darkness as the massive limb sheared clean off the trunk, jerked down by the sudden weight. The work lamp tore free and swung wildly, throwing crazed shadows across faces and bark and dust. The heavy branch, rope still looped around it, crashed sideways off the truck and tumbled down the slope beyond, slamming into rocks and brush. The woman went with it, vanishing into the darkness below the ridge road. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. Thunder rumbled closer, as if the sky itself was reacting. "Jesus," someone whispered. Cole was already moving, shoving through the knot of bodies toward the edge of the drop. They reached the rim of the shallow ravine together, flashlights whipping across scrub and stone and the jagged remains of the branch. Dust still billowed up from the impact. "See her?" Holt barked, breath hot, at Cole's shoulder. Cole scanned the ravine, beam cutting over torn earth, snapped brush, the thick limb lying twisted near the bottom. The rope whipped in the wind, its free end dancing, frayed where it had snagged. But there was no limp body, no dark shape hanging or crumpled. No sign of the woman at all. She must have rolled," someone said. "Down there, behind that rock." Another voice suggested, too hopeful. Cole adjusted the beam, tried to slow his breathing. The ravine dropped another 10 feet beyond the first terrace, narrowing into a rocky gully clogged with scrub oak. In the deepening dark, it was a mess of jagged shadows. "Could have snapped her neck and she tumbled," Holt said, though there was a tightness in his tone now. "We ain't leaving her, if that's what you're thinking." "I'm thinking we're losing light," Cole muttered. "Fan out. Flashlights, ropes. Nobody goes down alone. If she's hurt, we're going to find her. If she's not hurt." He didn't finish that sentence. The crowd heard the end anyway. "If she's not hurt, that means she survived the fall. And if she survived the fall, she's out there, watching." They searched for 3 hours. Lightning scribbled silver veins across the clouds. The storm never quite committed to breaking, just grumbled and flashed on the horizon like an old man complaining in his sleep. Men scrambled along the ravine's edges, ropes tied to truck bumpers, flashlights stabbing the darkness. Dogs barked, pulled, snuffed at every patch of blood or sweat or fear. They found torn bark and scuffed rock where the branch had dragged. They found one of her boots wedged between 2 stones, the laces snapped, the toe scorched as if it had been near intense heat once. They did not find a body. By midnight, the mob had thinned into a handful of angry, tired men and one stubborn sheriff. The feed store owner was the last to surrender. "She's dead," Tucker insisted, rubbing his thick hands together, breath steaming in the cold. "No one walks away from a fall like that with a rope around their neck. Buzzards will find what's left in a day or 2. Cole stared into the ravine, feeling the weight of the stars and the buzzing work lamps pressing on his skull. "Maybe," he said. "Not maybe. Definitely. We did what needed doing, Sheriff." You saw the look in her eyes. She wasn't afraid for herself, 'cause she knew what was coming after her. Same as would have come after us if we just let her keep watching us like cattle. "You going home?" Cole said. "I'll file the report." Tucker snorted. "You gonna write it down as an accident?" Cole didn't answer. Tucker clapped him on the shoulder, a gesture that landed more like a shove, and stalked back toward the trucks. Soon the engines were fading into the distance, leaving only the whisper of wind through branches and the faint buzz of a lone work lamp still screwed into the tree trunk. Cole stood there for another 10 minutes, listening. At last he spoke, to the ravine and the dark and the echo of his own doubt. "If you're alive down there," he said quietly, "stay that way. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry." Something shifted in the brush below. A rabbit, maybe, or just his imagination replaying her words. Be ready. He turned back toward his cruiser, the old sycamore looming behind him like a hanging judge. She woke to the taste of metal and pine needles. Her neck felt like someone had wrapped a hot iron around it and pulled. A raw band of pain circled her throat, every swallow like sandpaper. Her head throbbed. Her left ankle screamed whenever she tried to move it. For several long seconds, she lay still and catalogued. Name, Kira Hale. Age, 36. Service, United States Navy, Special Warfare. Retired on paper, activated off it. Status, alive. Alive was a good start. Kira peeled her eyes open. Above her, a scrim of branches cut the bruised indigo sky into ragged shapes. Lightning flickered faintly behind the clouds, far away now. Night birds muttered. The air smelled of dust, sap, and the faint, sour tang of burned fuel still clinging to her clothes. She tried to sit up and nearly blacked out from the sudden spike of pain in her ankle. She hissed, sucked air through her teeth, forced the world back into focus. The rope. Her hands were free now. She'd felt them loosen on the way down, fingers numbed by the impact with the branch. That old sycamore had done what she couldn't do in time. Snapped before the drop fully finished its work. The branch breaking had yanked her sideways, not straight down, and the rope had slipped just enough for her to get a few precious millimeters between fiber and windpipe. She remembered the world flipping, the branch slamming into her shoulder, the hot burst of agony in her ankle as she'd bounced off rock. Then nothing but black, roaring silence. Still here, she croaked, voice a ragged whisper. She rolled to one side and pushed onto her elbows. Her ankle was swollen, already ballooning against the confines of her sock. Not good, but she felt no grinding bone, no destabilizing shift. Ligament damage, most likely. Painful, limiting, but not terminal. She scanned the dark, night-adjusted vision picking out the bulk of the broken branch lying 10 feet downslope, the frayed end of the rope dragging behind it like a tail. The ravine angled deeper below her, into thicker brush and scattered boulders. Above, faint and far, she could see the glow of truck headlights heading back toward town. Voices drifted on the wind, then faded. They thought she was dead. Good. Kira pulled herself forward, dragging her injured leg. Her fingers closed around the rope. She traced it to the knotted loop that had nearly taken her life. The fibers were scuffed and burned with friction from the fall. Her own dried blood darkened one side. She studied it for one clinical, detached heartbeat, as she looped it around her torso and shoulder like a bandolier. Never waste a useful tool. She needed altitude, concealment, and distance. And she needed to know if the fire at the cabin had been the escalation she feared, or the warning she'd failed to heed in time. I told you they'd panic, she murmured to herself as she started to crawl uphill, using her good leg in both arms. You underestimated fear again, Hale. Rookie mistake. Above her, somewhere beyond the ridge, a motor growled. Not the rough cough of a farm truck, but the steady purr of a well-maintained engine. She froze, listening. The sound stayed high and distant. A vehicle on the highway, then, not in the ravine. She kept moving. Her throat burned. Each breath scraped. A hanging left marks deeper than the skin. She remembered the sheriff's face as the crowd had called for her death. The way his eyes had looked like they belonged to someone else. Someone watching himself from a distance, unable to believe he could truly be doing this. He looked sorry, but sorry didn't cut the rope. The next morning, Cole was halfway through the paperwork he hated most. The kind where something terrible happened and there was no neat box on the form to describe it. When 3 black SUVs rolled into Harrow Creek like thunderheads. They were unmarked, but you didn't need antennas and government plates to know federal when you saw it. There was a certain way of parking right in front of a small-town sheriff's office without asking, a way of stepping out in suits that cost more than some people's trucks and scanning the street like it belonged to them. Cole watched through the station's front window as 6 men and 1 woman exited the vehicles. The woman wore dark sunglasses despite the overcast sky. She consulted a tablet, said something to the man beside her, and pointed toward the station. Well, hell, Cole muttered. Deputy Holt, leaning in the doorway to the bullpen, followed his gaze. "You expecting company?" Holt asked, pushing his hat back. "Not the kind with shiny shoes," Cole replied. "Go put coffee on, and maybe hide the donuts." Holt chuckled once and headed for the break room, but the sound died quick as the station door swung open. The woman with the sunglasses entered first. She removed them as she stepped inside, revealing cool hazel eyes. Her hair was tied back in a no-nonsense knot. The badge clipped inside her blazer read, DHS, Homeland Security. "Sheriff Ransom?" she asked. "That's me," Cole said, standing. "Mornin', ma'am. What can Harrow Creek do for Homeland Security?" Behind her, the other agents fanned out, taking up casual positions that didn't feel casual at all. One near the front door, another beside the hallway that led to the cells. Two more hovering by the bulletin board, eyes scanning everything from the wanted posters to the faded found dog flyer. The woman strode up to the counter, tablet in hand. "I'm Special Agent Navarro," she said. "We're looking for someone who came through this area. We have credible intel. She might be operating in or around Harrow Creek." She tapped the tablet and turned it so he could see. Cole's stomach turned to ice. The photo was a few years old, judging by the slightly longer hair, but the eyes were exactly the same, sharp gray, assessing. The woman from the sycamore, this time in dress uniform. Ribbons. Trident. The caption under the photo, LT Kira Hale, redacted. His throat felt like it had a rope in it. "Well, Sheriff," Navarro asked, "have you seen this woman?" Cole heard the faint squeak of Holt's boot behind him. The deputy had frozen in place, coffee pot halfway to the machine. He could lie. Say no. Pretend she'd never walked into his town, never looked him in the eyes, and told him they were killing the wrong person. But he'd been a cop long enough to know something else. You couldn't beat the truth forever. It had a nasty habit of digging itself up. "Yes," Cole said, forcing the word out. "She came through. Last night." Navarro's gaze narrowed. "Where's she now?" Cole exhaled. "That's a longer story." By the time he finished, the coffee was cold on the desk, untouched. Navarro's expression didn't change much as he talked. She listened like a sniper sighting a target. All focus, no wasted movement. But the knuckles of the hand holding her pen whitened when he described the noose. "The branch. The empty ravine. We searched for hours," Cole said. "Dawn to near midnight. Dogs, ropes, everything we had. We didn't find her." "Did you find evidence of her gear?" Navarro asked. "Rifle? Case? Pack? Some of it, yeah. One of my deputies found a burned-out cabin 2 days ago. Looked like it had been hit with accelerant. On the ridge above it we found a hide. You know, a sniper's nest," Navarro finished. "Yes. You logged it?" "Sure did." He tapped the folder on his desk. "Zip-tied everything, took photos, bagged what we could. We got one of them fancy long rifles in lockup right now. Also some kind of scope. M110 SAS, Navarro said. Semi-automatic sniper system. Night vision optics suppressed. Custom modifications." Cole blinked. "You know an awful lot about guns for a desk badge." Her mouth twitched very slightly. "Lieutenant Hale wasn't just some random drifter with a rifle, Sheriff. She was one of the best long-range assets special warfare ever produced. Confirmed at 1,900 meters. Multiple theaters." He whistled softly despite himself. "That far. Longer unofficially." Navarro's gaze snapped back to him. "She was decorated to the point where we stopped having room on her uniform. Until she disappeared." Holt shifted, finally finding his voice. "Disappeared how?" "Took voluntary separation papers 3 years ago," Navarro said. "Very sudden. She went from near legend status to off the grid. No credit cards, no social, no phone. Ghosted everyone, including her own team." "And you've been looking ever since?" Holt asked. "We've been aware," Navarro said. "Recently, some older threads connected to newer concerns." She slid a manila folder across the desk to Cole. The top page showed a satellite image of the ridge above Harrow Creek. Small red dots mark positions along an old logging track. "You know who's been sniffing around your valley, Sheriff?" "The cartel," Cole said. "And some militia types." "We heard." "What you heard was the sanitized version," Navarro replied. "The truth is uglier." There's a trafficking corridor running just west of your town. For months, shipments have gone missing. People and product. Whoever's been hitting them knows the terrain, their routes, and their codes. At first, we thought rival crew. Then we saw this. She flipped to the next page. A grainy long-range photo of Kira on the ridge, rifle slung, staring down into the valley where Harrow Creek lay like a handful of toy houses beside the creek. Taken by a cartel drone 3 weeks ago, Navarro said. They've been looking for her, too. Holt swallowed audibly. So, she was talking out cartel trucks? Not scouting us. To them, there's not much difference, Navarro said. Harrow Creek is on their map now because of those hits. Hale's been bleeding them quietly, using your terrain. We believe she intercepted at least 4 major shipments in this sector. People they intended to disappear are suddenly showing up in safe houses with stories about a woman in the woods. Cole thought of the burned cabin, the kids missing, the fear that had twisted his town into something ugly. You said older threads, he said slowly. She vanished from your radar 3 years ago. Then she's suddenly here, doing your job better than you can. Why now? Navarro hesitated. Just once. It was small, but Cole caught it. Lieutenant Hale went dark after an operation that went sideways, she said carefully. She lost someone she blamed the government for sacrificing. Since then, she's been selective about who she works for. She's not your enemy, Sheriff. She's just done asking for permission. She told me we were killing the wrong person, Cole murmured. I didn't listen. Most people don't when they're standing in front of gallows, Navarro said. That's why we try not to leave life or death decisions to small town mobs. Holt bristled. Now hold on. Deputy, Navarro said, turning that cool gaze on him. If Lieutenant Hale is still alive, you lynched a decorated veteran and one of the only reasons your town isn't already a cartel way station. If she's dead, then congratulations. You just did more for organized crime than any payroll officer they've ever bribed. The room went very quiet. Holt flushed a deep red. His mouth opened, then closed. He retreated a step without being told. Cole stared at the photo of Kira on the hill. The caption, the ribbons on her uniform. The eyes he'd seen looking down at him from the back of the pickup. Is there any chance the fall killed her? He asked. Navarro glanced at the report he'd written, skimming. You said the branch broke, and she fell with it. Rough estimate of 20 feet to first impact. Additional drop into the ravine. Rope scuffed. No body recovered. She pursed her lips. I've seen Lieutenant Hale's training file. I've read her psych evals. You know what her instructor wrote under stress tolerance? No. Quote, like hanging an avalanche and expecting it not to come down. Cole blinked. You can't hang an avalanche. Exactly, Navarro said. My money? She's alive. Hurt, maybe. Pissed, definitely. And she knows more about the people coming for your town than I do. She ain't gonna be happy to see us, Holt muttered. She warned you, Navarro said. You didn't listen. Now the best you could do is make that mistake worth something. And how do you suggest we do that, Agent Navarro? Cole asked. Navarro slid the last page across. A different satellite photo. This one showed 3 SUVs parked in a clearing in the pines, not far from the burned cabin Holt had found. Men milled around them, ant-sized from altitude. These were taken 12 hours before your little civic event, she said. The cartel's local liaison is meeting with someone tonight. We've been trying to pinpoint an exact location. But if Hale's still alive, and I'd bet my badge she is, she knows that terrain better than anyone. So here's the plan, Sheriff. You're going to help us find the woman you try to hang. And then you're going to convince her that Harrow Creek is worth saving. Kira heard them before she saw them. The forest had a rhythm she trusted more than any satellite. The hush of quail in the brush, the gossip of squirrels, the slow, resigned complaint of old pines shifting under the wind. When that rhythm changed, it meant strangers. By late afternoon, she'd limped 3 miles along the ridge, moving in fits and starts. She'd splinted her ankle with a branch and strips torn from the hem of her shirt. Every step sent a hot spear up her leg, but she'd known worse. She'd stitched herself up in worse places than this. Her pack and rifle were gone, taken by the deputies. That hurt more than the ankle. The rifle had been custom fit to her. balanced like an extension of her own body. Losing it was like losing a limb. She'd made do with what she had. A short survival blade strapped at the small of her back. 2 small throwing knives sewn inside the lining of her jacket. A compass she'd once swallowed, and then unswallowed when a warlord tried to strip her. And the rope coiled now at her hip. She'd found a small draw where the ridge dipped, creating a bowl of rock and brush. From there she had line of sight to both the burned cabin's clearing and the main logging road below. Not as good as her original nest, but workable. She'd just finished setting up her fallback blind, some branches woven into a natural-looking thicket when the birds went quiet. Engines. More than one. Closer than she liked. She slid into the brush, every movement economical. Her breath slowed. Her pulse steadied. The pain in her ankle faded around the edges, filed away in some back room of her mind where it could pound on the walls as much as it wanted. Through a narrow slit in the leaves, she saw them. 3 black SUVs nosing along the dirt track, tires crunching gravel. Government grade, not cartel. Windows tinted deep. She tensed. The first SUV stopped at the edge of the clearing. Doors opened. Men in suits stepped out, weapons low but ready. The woman with them, navy blazer, sunglasses, moved like she owned the ground under her feet. Kira recognized that posture. Government, then, and with them, Kira felt something unfamiliar kick in her chest. Guilt? No, not quite. Irritation, maybe, because there, climbing out of the second SUV like a man headed to a funeral where he suspected he might be the corpse, was Sheriff Cole Ransom. He looked tired, dark crescents under his eyes. The brim of his hat shaded his face, but she could see the set of his shoulders, the stiffness in his jaw. He kept looking toward the ravine as if expecting to see a ghost. You got your wish, Sheriff, she thought. I'm not hanging anymore. But ghosts? I can do ghosts. Another figure climbed out of the back of the third SUV, squinting, chewing gum angrily. The deputy who'd pulled the lever. Halt! Kira's fingers curled around the knife hilt at her back. She watched as the feds and locals stepped into the clearing. The burned cabin's foundation lay like a black scar, ringed by charred debris. Navarro. Kira recognized her now. One of the suits who'd argued 3 years back for letting civilians burn to keep an op clean, pointed at the ground, saying something to Cole. Cole replied, his hands spread, his movements sharp, guilt and frustration melting into defensive anger. Holt hovered at the edge, face closed. Kira weighed options. The cartel would be on the move. Tonight, maybe tomorrow. Once they realized their shipments weren't delayed by weather, but stolen by a ghost with a rifle, they'd escalate. She'd taken 4 loads from them, 2 of which had included human cargo. It had been delicate work, hitting hard, then vanishing, leaving just enough rumor to warn the rest of the chain that someone was watching. The burned cabin had been their response. A message. We can erase you, and everyone near you, if you push too hard. She'd move her nest. She'd adapted. Then Harrow Creek had panicked. Now, instead of a ghost in their hills, the cartel had a town that thought the ghost was the enemy. And the government was stomping around in the open like it could scare the shadows away by being scarier. She ground her molars, considering. She could leave, limp further into the mountains. Regroup. Let Harrow Creek deal with the fallout of its choices. But she saw something in Cole as he stood there listening to Navarro. Something she recognized from broken men on foreign rooftops, staring at fields where they'd accidentally dropped fire. Regret. The kind that's soaked in deeper than bone. And there were the kids. The ranch hands who'd vanished. The ones she tried to find, following rumors of trucks at night. She hadn't saved them in time. She hated leaving failures behind. Finally, she sighed. You're getting soft, Hale, she whispered. She palmed one of the small, throwing knives, flipped it so the blade lay along her finger, and flicked her wrist. The knife arced through the air, a whisper of silver lost against the gray sky. It smacked into Navarro's SUV hood with a solid thunk, burying itself to the hilt in the weather stripping. Every gun in the clearing snapped up. Sniper! Holt yelled, diving for cover behind a charred beam. Kira rolled her eyes. If she'd wanted Navarro dead, she'd be on the ground with a hole through her sternum, not staring at a knife stuck in her paint job. "Hold your fire," Navarro shouted, throwing an arm out to the side. "Hold it, damn it. Hale." She turned in a slow circle, head tilted back. "Lieutenant Kira Hale, if you can hear me, we are not your enemy." Kira snorted softly. That was debatable. Cole, to his credit, didn't dive for cover. He watched the knife quiver on the SUV hood, then scanned the tree line with narrowed eyes. Not panicked. Measuring. "Show yourself," Navarro called. "We just want to talk." "If that was true," Kira murmured, "you'd have come with fewer guns." She waited 10 seconds. 20. Navarro kept talking, voice carrying across the clearing in carefully controlled bursts. She mentioned cartel routes. She mentioned the kids. She mentioned shared objectives. Finally, Navarro said the one thing Kira had been waiting for. "We know what happened in Kandahar," the agent called. "It wasn't your fault. They lied to you. They lied to us. But letting Harrow Creek burn isn't going to bring them back." Kira's jaw clenched. Heat blossomed under her ribs. "I told you once," Kira muttered, adjusting her grip on the underbrush, splint digging into her calf. "You want me. You come alone." "Down below." Cole turned to Navarro sharply. "You're calling out classified ops in the middle of my forest?" he hissed. "She already knows," Navarro said. "She was there." "That's not the point," Cole said. "You keep shouting like that, you'll draw more than just her." He was right. On the far edge of the clearing, a small black drone buzzed up from the trees like an angry insect, rotors whining. Navarro's head snapped around. "Down," she barked. The drone's camera pivoted, lens glinting as it locked onto the cluster of agents and locals. Cartel, Kira thought. Faster than I hoped. The drone banked, angling east, likely toward whoever was holding the control pad. Back to the convoy. Back to the men with guns who'd been scouring these hills for weeks. Kira's window was shrinking. She made her choice in under a breath. Moving fast, ignoring the protest from her ankle, she slithered out of her blind, wrapped the rope around a nearby rock as a belay, and lowered herself 4 feet to a new vantage point. From here, she had a clear line on the drone and a decent angle on the clearing below. She drew her second throwing knife, weighed it once, twice, feeling the balance, the wind. "Just like old times," she muttered. She threw. The knife spun end over end, a tight little circle of steel against sky. It intersected perfectly with the drone's path, punching through a rotor arm. The small machine jerked, spiraled drunkenly, and slammed into a pine trunk with a crack of plastic. It fell in a spray of broken pieces. In the clearing, everyone flinched. Several guns tracked the falling wreckage. One agent took a half step as if to pursue, then thought better of it. Navarro's eyes went wide. Not in fear, in recognition. "That's her," she said softly. Only she would waste a perfectly good weapon like that on a show-off shot. She's not wrong, Kira thought. Sheriff Cole spun slowly, hands raised halfway, palms open. "Kira," he called, voice rough. "Lieutenant Hale, whatever you prefer. You can probably put a bullet through my badge from wherever you are." Several agents flinched at that. Navarro stayed still. "But I'm hoping you hear me instead," Cole continued. "Because we screwed up last night. I screwed up. I should have listened. You told me we were killing the wrong person, and I helped put a rope around your neck anyway." He swallowed, throat working. "I'm not asking you to forgive that," he said. "Frankly, if you took a shot at me right now, I don't know as I'd say I didn't earn it. But the folks who panicked, the ones who saw you on the ridge and thought the cartel had finally come." He shook his head. "They're scared, Hale. They're not evil. They're just living with something too big for them and no one to tell him what's really going on." Kira watched him, the way his shoulders squared, even as his voice betrayed the weight he carried. "I know a bit about standing in the wrong place with a rope in your hands," he said. "My old man wore this badge before me. He had his own panics. His own nights he wished he had back. He always told me the only real question wasn't whether you made mistakes. It was what you did after." Cole turned slowly, making sure his voice reached the trees. "So here it is," he called. "Cartel's coming. Government's half a step behind. My town is sitting in between, small and soft, and full of people who don't know how to fight ghosts on hillsides. If you walk away, Kira Hale, I won't blame you. I'll likely spend the rest of my days thinking about how I helped drive away the only person who could have helped us. He spread his hands wider. But if you don't walk away, if you come down and talk, I swear on this badge, I'll do everything I can help you make this right. For them. For you. Hell, maybe even a little for me. Navarro stepped up beside him, surprisingly letting his words hang a moment before adding her own. I brought authorization, she called. Full asset cooperation. No shackles. No orders. We advise, you decide. You want to run the op, you run the op. Just help us hit them where it hurts, and keep this valley out of the headlines. Kira exhaled slowly. They were making it very hard to justify leaving. She took stock. Injured ankle, no rifle, minimal tools. Cartel on the move. Now aware government was sniffing around its meetings. A town that had almost killed her, now dangling on the edge of becoming collateral damage. If she left, the cartel would roll through Harrow Creek like a slow-moving landslide. They'd take what they wanted. They'd burn what was inconvenient. Navarro would write a report, Cole would attend too many funerals, and somewhere in a concrete office someone would add a line to a file. Asset Hale remains uncooperative. She'd disappear again, become another rumor in another valley. She thought of the rope around her neck, the snap of the branch, the look in Cole's eyes when he'd said, "I'm sorry." Kira pushed herself upright, grimacing. She gripped the rope, testing its strength one more time, then tossed it over a branch and eased her way down the slope, staying within cover until she was at the edge of the clearing's tree line. "Sheriff," Navarro murmured, voice tight as her gaze roved the upper branches. "If she decides we're more trouble than we're worth." "We're already hung," Cole said quietly. "Question is just whether she cuts the rope or pulls." A dry voice behind him said, "You picked a weird metaphor there, Sheriff." Guns swung toward the sound like compass needles to magnetic north. Kira stepped out of the shadows, one hand raised, rope coiled over her shoulder like a sleeping snake. Her neck bore a raw, angry ring of bruised flesh, purple and red against pale skin. Her left ankle was wrapped in a makeshift splint. Her gray eyes were tired but steady. "Stand down," Navarro barked. "Everyone, now." Guns dipped reluctantly. Holt's hand shook on his sidearm before he yanked it back into its holster. Cole stared at Kira. Up close, the hanging's mark looked worse. He swallowed something that tasted like bile. "You're a hard woman to kill," he said. Kira arched a brow. "It's not for lack of trying on your part." He flinched. "You're right. And I'm sorry." She studied him for a long moment, as if measuring something inside him against a standard he hadn't seen written. Then she nodded once. "Good," she said. "Guilt means you're still human. We're going to need humans tonight." Navarro stepped forward, tablet forgotten at her side. "Lieutenant Hale," she said. "Navarro." Kira's tone made the agent's name sound like both greeting and indictment. "Still wearing the same brand of suit, I see." "Some of us don't get to disappear into the hills," Navarro replied. "We file forms. We argue with men who think maps are more real than villages." "You come here to argue, too?" Kira asked. "No. I came here to tell you we're authorizing you to do what you were already doing. We're just asking you to let us help this time." Kira's gaze flicked to the broken drone at the base of the pine. "They'll have more of those," she said. "And more trucks. More men." "Yes," Navarro said. "They're spooked. You've been too effective." Kira shrugged one shoulder. "You say that like it's a bad thing." "It's a dangerous thing," Navarro said. "For the people in the crosshairs. Right now, that's this town." Kira looked at Cole again. "How many in Harrow Creek?" she asked. "About 800 in the town proper," he said. "More if you count the ranches spread out. Kids, old folks, folks who think a bad day is the tractor breaking again. Any of them fight besides Deputy Rope Trick over there?" Kira tilted her head toward Holt, who flushed scarlet. "Some serve," Cole said. "Few hunters who can hit a deer at 200 yards on a good day. Not many ready for what you're talking about, though." Kira nodded slowly. "All right," she said. "Then here's what we're going to do." By nightfall, Harrow Creek had turned into something it had never planned on being, a battlefield. Not that the townsfolk knew that exactly. Cole and Navarro had agreed, reluctantly in Navarro's case, to keep the details to a minimum. Panic had nearly killed them once already. No sense inviting a sequel. They told the town there was a credible threat of trouble from out-of-towners, that folks should stay indoors, keep their lights low, and call the station if they saw anything stranger than usual. What they didn't say was that Kira had pieced together cartel route patterns from intercepted radio chatter, drone wreckage, and the distinctive tire tracks she'd been marking for weeks. That her projection put a convoy of armed men and trucks within 2 miles of town by midnight, likely using the old logging road as a staging area before creeping down toward the main highway. They'll want leverage, she told Cole and Navarro as they studied a map spread across the sheriff's desk. If they think law enforcement is sniffing around their corridor, they'll grab hostages. Town like this? Easy pickings. Snatch a few, hole up somewhere central, buy themselves time to move product through another route. Or just leave a mess as a warning to anyone else thinking of standing up, Cole said grimly. Either way, we can't let them pass the ridge, Navarro said. We engage them deep in the woods, away from civilians. With what rifle? Kira asked calmly. Last I checked, my long gun was currently eyeing your evidence locker with a paper band around it. Navarro hesitated. Then she reached in her jacket, pulled out a key ring, and tossed it to Cole. Release it, she said. Cole caught the keys, their weight heavier than metal. You sure your bosses are good with me handing a sniper rifle back to the woman you called a ghost? He asked. No, Navarro said. But they're 3 hours away, and I'm standing right here. We're out of time for politics. Cole didn't argue. He disappeared into the back, returned a minute later carrying a gun case with both hands like it held a sleeping child. Kira opened it with a kind of reverence she rarely let anyone see. Her fingers brushed the matte metal, the familiar grip, the worn spot where her thumb had rested through a dozen missions in cities whose names never made it into newspapers. Hey there, she murmured. Holt muttered. She talks to it? You got a problem with that, deputy? Kira asked without looking up. Holt hesitated. He glanced at Cole, swallowed. No, ma'am, he said. Kira's mouth curved very slightly as she slotted the bolt, checked the optics, and began the practiced ritual of loading, adjusting, calibrating. Her movements were efficient, almost tender. Cole watched, feeling both safer and more terrified by the second. You sure you're good to shoot with that ankle? He asked quietly. I've shot from worse positions, Kira said. Once did Overwatch with 2 busted ribs and a dislocated shoulder. How's that supposed to make me feel better? He asked. It's not, she said. It's supposed to make you take this seriously. Navarro tapped the map. We'll set up a perimeter here, she said, indicating the bend in the logging road overlooking a ravine. Agents along this line. Cars here and here as blocking positions. Hale, I'll be up on this rise, Kira said, tapping a ridge that overlooked the bend. 1,000 yards. Good cover, clean fields of fire. If I try to flank, I move here. She traced a second fallback position. You keep your men tight. Don't chase anybody into the trees. That's where they own the ground. And what about me? Cole asked. Kira's gaze met his. You're staying in town, she said. You, and rope trick. Holt bristled. Like hell. I'm not sitting on my hands while you and your G-men play army up there. You're not playing army, Kira said. You're being bait. Cole stared. Bait? They're not stupid, Kira said. They'll have spotters, cars around the bend, agents with long guns, that much firepower clustered in the woods. They'll smell a trap. But if they see the sheriff's cruiser still in front of the station, lights off, town looking sleepy, they'll think we're just distracted, Cole finished slowly. Not ready. Exactly, Kira said. They'll split their force. Send some in to grab hostages while the rest try to push through the roadblock. Navarro frowned. That's twice as many moving parts. That's twice as many targets away from civilians, Kira corrected. Sheriff, you know every inch of this town. Every back alley. Every attic and cellar. You stay put. You lock it down. You keep your people breathing. You want to make up for last night? This is how you do it. Cole looked at the map. At the little circle that represented the town square, the thin lines that were streets he'd driven 1,000 times. He looked at the woman he'd helped hang. All right, he said. I'll be bait. Holt cursed under his breath. Cole shot him a look. You got a problem with that, deputy? Cole asked. Holt opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked at Kira's bruised throat, the rope coiled at her hip. His shoulders sagged. "No, Sheriff," he said. "I'll stay with you." Kira nodded. "Good. Because if you run this time, I will shoot you in the kneecaps." Holt believed her. Midnight on Blackhorn Ridge felt like the whole world was holding its breath. Up on the rise, Kira lay prone on a bed of pine needles, rifle snug into her shoulder, cheek resting against the stock. The night smelled of sap and cold earth and distant storm. Her breath plumed faintly in front of her between slow, controlled inhales. Her ankle throbbed a steady, distant drumbeat. She ignored it. Pain was background noise. Through her scope, the logging road was a pale ribbon cutting through the trees, illuminated only by the ambient glow of a covered work lamp near the federal vehicles. Navarro had been smart enough not to flood the forest with light. "Fox, when this is command," Navarro's voice murmured in Kira's earpiece. "Status. Fox 1 is bored," Kira replied softly. "Waiting on our guests." "You sure they'll come this way?" Navarro asked. "I've been sure before," Kira said, and then the universe laughed. "But all my reads say this is their best shot. They won't pass up a chance to prove the hills belong to them." "Harrow Creek PD, what's your status?" Navarro asked. Cole's voice came through, slightly fuzzier. "Town's quiet," he said. "Folks are in their houses, lights mostly off. Got Holt at the back door watching for shadows. If anyone comes down this main street that isn't a drunk farmer trying to sleep it off in front of my office, we'll know." "Copy," Navarro said. "Stay sharp, Sheriff." "Try not to stay hung, ma'am," he replied. Kira smirked just a little. Time stretched. A barred owl called once alow, haunting who cooks for you from deeper in the woods. Her mind drifted, unbidden, to another night. Another ridge. Another town that hadn't known it was sitting on a powder keg. Kandahar, a name that tasted like ashes. She pushed it away. Headlights bloomed in her scope like twin suns. "Contact," Kira murmured. "2 vehicles, maybe 3. Lights dipping. They think they're sneaky." "Command, you copy." "Copy," Navarro said, voice tightening. The trucks nosed along the logging road, engines muted, light beams sweeping the trees. They slowed as they approached the bend where the feds lay in wait. Kira tracked them, adjusting for distance, wind, the slight drop in temperature that would tweak bullet behavior. She counted silhouettes, saw the glint of rifles through windows. "Hale," Navarro asked quietly. "I see them," Kira said. "What's your call?" Kira breathed in, held, felt the weight of the rifle, the memory of a rope around her neck. The town below, unaware but not innocent. She breathed out. "It's too late for them to learn who I am," she said. "But we can still teach him what that means." Her finger tightened on the trigger. A crack of light erupted from the muzzle, swallowed almost instantly by the suppressor's cough. Down on the road, the convoy shuddered. The lead driver's head snapped sideways as the bullet took him through the temple. The truck veered, smashed into the embankment, and stalled. Shouts erupted. Doors flew open. Men spilled out, looking wildly into the trees. Kira shot again, and again. Each shot found a leg, a shoulder, a gun hand. She aimed to maim first, panic them, break their formation, force them into cover away from the trucks before they could rally and spray the woods blindly. "Now," Navarro barked in the earpiece. "Engage." Agents opened up, control burst from disciplined shooters. The night filled with the staccato chorus of gunfire, muzzle flashes flickering like angry fireflies. Kira moved her scope, picked off anyone who tried to rush toward the roadside dish. One man broke for the trees, a radio clutched in his hand. She put a round through the radio, shattering it, then another through his thigh, dropping him. "Convoy stall," she reported, "but some will try to slip around. Watch your flanks." "Copy." Navarro's voice answered, strained. Kira shifted her focus, scanning the tree line beyond the immediate firefight. There, a shadow peeling away, splitting from the main group. 2, no, 3 figures, angling down the slope away from the road. Toward the town. "Command, be advised," Kira said sharply. "We have split elements moving southeast. Likely a team heading for Harrow Creek as Plan B." "Sheriff, you hear that?" Navarro demanded. "Loud and clear," Cole's voice came. "Thanks for the heads up." Kira hesitated half a beat. "You've got 3, Maybe 4, she said into the earpiece. Armed. They'll try to grab hostages fast, then hole up somewhere central. My money's on your church or the feed store. Appreciate the tactical insight, Cole said dryly. Any chance you can handle him from up there? I'm a lot of things, Sheriff, Kira replied. But I can't bend bullets around hills. You're on your own. Figures, Cole muttered. The channel clicked as he switched frequencies. Holt, Cole said. We got company coming. You ready to make up for last night? Holt's response was tight but steady. Ready as I'll ever be. Kira shifted her rifle, considering. She could stay and finish the fight on the ridge. Clean up the convoy. Reduce the number of cartel survivors who'd crawl back with stories about a ghost sniper and federal ambush. Or she could move. Try to get eyes on the town. Provide even a sliver of overwatch. Her ankle screamed at the idea of running another yard, let alone miles. She ignored it. Command, she said. You've got enough guns up here. I'm moving south. See if I can get angle on the town. Hale, Navarro began. But Kira was already rolling on her side, dragging her pack on, slinging the rifle. She grabbed the rope, looped it around a tree, and began a controlled slide down the far side of the ridge, each jolt sending a lightning bolt up her leg. Besides, she muttered to herself, I owe that sheriff at least one good deed before I vanish again. Harrow Creek at night looked how it always did. A few porch lights glowing soft amber, neon beer sign flickering at the bar, the highway beyond a faint silver streak. Except tonight, Cole knew it wasn't sleeping. It was holding its breath. He crouched behind the counter in the station, Holt at the window, peeking through the blinds. See anything? Cole whispered. Couple of cats, Holt said. Old Mrs. Jensen yelling at her TV. And wait. There. Blue pickup. No lights. Rolling real slow past the diner. Cole's heartbeat picked up. They don't know which building we use as our main office? Holt muttered. Out-of-towners, Cole said. All these brick boxes look the same at night. They watched the truck crawl along the main street. Engine barely audible. It rolled past the hardware store, the tiny library, the church. It slowed in front of the station for a half-second. Cole held his breath, pictured the sign over the door. Harrow Creek Sheriff's Department. The cruiser parked at the curb like a decoy. The truck kept going. Maybe they're just joyriding, Holt said hopefully. Maybe I'm the Queen of England, Cole replied. The truck turned at the next corner, disappearing behind a row of buildings. Back alley, Cole said. They'll park where they can run either direction. Less line of sight. Should we call Navarro? Holt asked. She's a bit busy, Cole said. Gunfire faintly echoed from the ridge, carried on the wind like distant thunder. Looks like it's just us now. They slipped out the back, moving low. The alley behind the station smelled of grease and old trash. The blue pickup idled near the dumpster behind the diner, 3 men already out and moving along the walls, staying in shadow. They were dressed in dark clothes, ballistic vests peeking under jackets. One carried bolt cutters. Another had a duffel bag slung over his shoulder that sagged in a way that said it wasn't full of gym clothes. The third man moved with a predator's confidence, pistol in hand. He signaled, and the others split, one toward the back door of the diner, the other angling toward the alley that led to the feed store. They were going to split hostages, Cole realized. One group from the diner's late staff, the other from whoever was still closing up shop. He thought of Tucker, the feed store owner. The man's booming voice at the lynching. The pride. The fear. Well, Cole murmured. Time to be sheriff. He nodded to Holt. The deputy's face was pale, but he nodded back. Remember what she said? Holt whispered. Use the alleys. Close distance. Don't let him just spray. You listening now? Cole asked. I'm trying to, Holt said. They moved as one, skirting along the opposite wall, circling behind the diner. The smell of fried food and bleach drifted through the cracked back door. The man with bolt cutters had them poised on the chain. Sheriff, Kira's voice crackled in Cole's ear, faint but clear. I've got eyes from the South Ridge. 2 individuals at the diner rear, one holding in the alley toward the feed store. Can't give you clean shots without risking you, so you're going to have to dance. Just like prom, Cole whispered. Glad you could join us. Try not to get shot, she said. I'd hate to waste the next scar on my conscience. He smiled grimly. Cole stepped out from behind the dumpster, gun leveled. "Sheriff's office," he barked. "Drop your weapons." The man with the cutter spun, eyes wide. The leader didn't startle. He raised his pistol smoothly, aiming at Cole's chest. That was his mistake. Cole had been teaching the kids at the range for years. Whoever slower dies. He fired twice, center mass. The recoil jolted up his arms, familiar and sickening. The leader staggered back, surprise blanching his face, then dropped. The man with the cutters hesitated just long enough for Holt to rattle off a shot. The bolt cutters clanged to the concrete as the man's arm went limp. Third bull in the alley. Kira snapped. "Sheriff, move." Cole dove sideways as a bullet chipped brick near his ear. Pain flashed along his shoulder as he hit the ground. Holt cursed, dropping behind the dumpster. Kira's rifle barked from somewhere above, the distant cough reaching them half a second after the bullet hit. The third man screamed, his leg buckling. Kira's next shot took his gun hand. "Y'all picked the wrong valley," Holt shouted, adrenaline making him reckless. "Deputy, shut up," Cole hissed, scrambling to his knees. The man in the alley was still moving, dragging himself toward the truck, blood smearing the pavement. Cole moved in, gun ready, heart hammering. "Don't," he warned. The man stopped. His eyes flicked between Cole and the diner door. "More coming," he panted in accented English. "You only slowed them." Cole pressed his lips together. "Yeah," he said. "Well, that's our job." They zip-tied the survivors with shaky hands, Holt grumbling as he cinched plastic tight. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, Navarro's people coming down off the ridge. The fight in the woods was almost over. Up on the hillside, under the same sky that had watched them try to kill her, Kira lay on her belly, scope roving, cleaning up. A man firing wildly into the dark dropped with a neat shot to his shoulder. Another, trying to crawl back into a truck, took a round in the calf. She didn't kill unless she had to. Not tonight. They'd spilled enough blood under that sycamore. Finally, Navarro's voice came in her ear. "Convoy neutralized," the agent said, breathless. "Minimal casualties. We've got 3 wounded on our side, all stable. Cartels in pieces, literally and figuratively." "Harrow Creek?" Kira asked. Cole answered, panting a little. "We're still here. Got 2 down, 3 in cuffs. No civilian casualties that I can see." "You did good, Hale." Kira let herself breathe fully for the first time in hours. "You did good, Sheriff," she said. "You could have run. You didn't." "Figured I had to earn the right to apologize again," he replied. Navarro chuckled weakly. "I'm sending a team down to you, Sheriff," she said. "We'll secure the town, move the wounded, get statements." "And me?" Kira asked. "Technically, I should be telling you to stay put," Navarro said. "But something tells me that would be like telling the tide to stop." "You're learning," Kira said. "You walk now and my superiors will have my hide," Navarro warned. "You'll grow another," Kira replied. "You're good at paperwork, remember?" She could almost hear Navarro's eye roll. "Where will you go?" Cole asked softly. Kira looked up at the sky, where the first hints of dawn were barely lightening the east. "Wherever the next problem is," she said. "That's the thing about ghosts. We don't stick around too long in one place." "This place owes you," Cole said. "I owe you." "You owe me a tree," Kira said dryly. "That sycamore and I are not on speaking terms." Cole laughed, a short, incredulous bark of sound born of exhaustion and relief. "You sure you won't stay, at least long enough for a cup of coffee that isn't from a federal thermos?" he asked. She thought about it. A simple cup of coffee in a diner that was still standing because she'd chosen to stay. People who might, in a week, learn her name not from a wanted poster, but from whispered, embarrassed gratitude. "Too messy. Too normal. Somebody else needs me more," she said finally. "Besides, you've got your own sniper now." "Who?" "You," she said. "You learned. That's rarer than you think." She began to break down her rifle, hands moving automatically. "Kira," Cole said, stumbling over her name for the first time. "If you're ever back this way, you don't have to be a ghost." She hesitated just a fraction, then slung the rope over her shoulder. "Tell your people," she said, "that the next time they see tracks on a ridge, maybe don't reach for a noose first." "I'll make sure they remember," he said. As she turned to go, Holt's voice came tentatively over the channel. "Lieutenant Hale," he asked, Yes, Deputy Rope Trick, she said. I'm sorry, he blurted. For the lever. There was a long pause. Then, to everyone's surprise, Kira laughed. It was a small sound, rusty from disuse, but real. Next time, she said, maybe you aim your courage at the right enemy. I'll try, Holtz said. Good, Kira replied. Because they'll be back. If not them, then someone like them. Fear doesn't retire. With that, she clicked off the radio. She slipped into the trees, moving like a shadow, ankle aching, throat burning. The town behind her buzzed with the aftermath of violence and the relief of survival. They'd hung her from a tree once, too late to learn she was a legendary SEAL sniper who'd already escaped more certain deaths than they could imagine. Now they knew. They would remember. And somewhere down the line, in another town pressed against another dark ridge, someone else would see a silhouette on a hill and wonder whether to reach for a rifle or a rope. Kira hoped, for their sake, they'd think of Harrow Creek and choose differently.